powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Bryce Harper homered, but the Braves have taken a 9-8 lead in extra innings. So they have the runner on second, and that run has scored. So the Harper homer might go for naught as extra innings. So let's bring in Geoff Mosher here to the conversation. Football at 4. Eagles win yesterday 25-20, Geoff Mosher, but it feels like a lot of people out there not overly impressed with the way that it happened. But, hey, it's a road win in the NFL against a pretty interesting Patriots team. But I want to start with Jalen Hurts yesterday and get your overall assessment of his play in the game.
Yeah, Mike, I think that it wasn't obviously his best game. I do believe that the Patriots did a lot of things because of that. Bill Belichick had a long time to prepare for this game. He's one of the best defensive minds in the game. It's not all on Jalen Hurts. I think that his performance wasn't great. I've only been able to watch some of the first half so far. The All-22 isn't out yet. But one of the things I can tell is that the Patriots early on brought a lot of different types of blitzes. They brought a lot of different types of pressure schemes. Sometimes they looked like they were blitzing. They were dropping back. And I don't think that the play designs were always very favorable for him. For example, in the first quarter, I think it was their second drive, I can't remember. They get down inside the 10-yard line for the Patriots. The Patriots bring 6 rushers, right? Well, the Eagles have 5 in to block, the normal offensive line, because they're in an empty formation. So Jalen Hurts knows when you only have 5 and 6 are coming at you, you have to get rid of the ball quickly. That's what a cover zero blitz does. However, if you watch the routes, none of them are designed to turn around and catch the ball quickly enough so that by the time that anybody might even be close to open, Matthew Judon is already on top of Jalen Hurts. And so I think that's a whole lot of what you get in week 1 when one team has a whole lot of time to prepare for you. And let's face it, the Patriots brought back a lot more players on defense to be able to do that and be comfortable, whereas the Eagles were trying out a lot of new players on defense on their end. So I do think that if we're sitting here after week 1 talking about a road victory that wasn't very pleasing to the eyes and left a lot of questions, well, then that sounds like a good recipe for what 2022 was, because we were saying the same things about that Lions game, which was a road victory for the Eagles that wasn't very pretty and had a lot of complaints about it.
Moshe, I want to ask you about the Gainwell yesterday, because after the game, Sirianni kind of said, hey, we can't give Swift 2 touches here. But it was apparent that Gainwell was the guy. But did you watch that game yesterday and say, man, they got to get Swift more touches and take touches away from Gainwell? What was your assessment of how they used the running backs and how that maybe impacted the offense yesterday?
Yeah, one of the things that Adam and I have talked about on Inside the Birds a lot, Mike, is that Kenny Gainwell has kind of become a running back that we didn't expect. Nobody really did. We've talked to his college coach, Ryan Silverfield, on Inside the Birds before, had him as a guest. And this is a guy who caught a lot of passes in college and was sort of that running back who can catch passes. And usually that's a guy who has some explosion to him. But if you look at Kenneth Gainwell, he's not exactly been an explosive back throughout his career. His Super Bowl touchdown, which was 30-something yards, was the longest run of his career. And you saw that again yesterday. And he got 14 carries, I believe, if I'm correct. But he averaged, I think, 3.9.
14 for 54.
Yeah, 3.9 a carry, which in the NFL these days is pedestrian. And again, he's going up against a very good defense, but he's got a great offensive line. And it's two things are mind-boggling to me. I guess 3. One, why they're so fascinated by Kenneth Gainwell to give him the most carries. 2, why you would trade for DeAndre Swift and only get him the ball, 2 or 3 times in the game? That's sort of strange to me. And as we mentioned on the post-game show that we're now doing with Clay Harbor, what's Rashad Penny making your 53 for if he's going to be inactive on game day? So all those 3 questions are sort of mind-boggling to us.
That's a good point. Yeah, Penny was inactive yesterday. So was Tyler Steen, which I thought was, interesting because, obviously he was a third-round pick, which basically said if somebody got hurt on the offensive line, they didn't trust him enough to go in the game. But Penny not being active yesterday, that's one there. Geoff Mosher. The offense, for whatever reason, they couldn't get a scoring drive together. A lot of field goals. They had the interception return for a touchdown. Is there concern about the offense moving forward, the play calling, or is it just like, hey, because I want to bring in the preseason thing that Sirianni said. I don't know why he would have said what he said yet. It's not like they've played in the preseason in the past. So It's not like he could say, well, we went to the Super Bowl last year. He could have said, and we didn't really play in the preseason. So I'm not going to change what I did. But he actually did acknowledge it. Maybe he will change that. So do you look at them yesterday and look at the play calling or the offense and say, there is some reason to be concerned moving forward?
I think we need a bigger sample size, Mike. I mean, last year we're having this conversation after the Lions game about the defense. Can they stop the run? Can they stop anybody? They gave up, 32 points or 31 points in that game to the Lions. And, DeAndre Swift had a big game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a big game. And, the next – it's weird how much last year can be like this year. The next thing we're doing is a couple of days later after they play – the Minnesota Vikings, right, in the night game, we're saying, wow, that was a way different defense that we saw. And by the end of the year, we were talking about a defense that ranked in the top 5. Now, I'm not of the mindset that this Eagles defense, which has been remade up the middle, is just going to all of a sudden be top 5. But I feel like I need more than just week 1 to make a long-term prognosis about whether or not there's going to be problematic areas. The concerns that we have were concerns going in. You've got 2 new linebackers. One of them's already hurt. You've got new safeties. You've got 2 new interior guys. And that when you have that much newness combined with a new staff, right, there's going to be growing pains. So it's not like I'm 100% surprised, but there are some things that you look at and you say, well, if you're going to be a nickel team, and they played a lot of 4-2 fronts, which is different from Jonathan Gannon's 5-man fronts. If you're going to play a lot of 4-2, and Zach Cunningham is one of your 2 off-the-ball linebackers, well, you're going to see throughout the year what the Patriots did, which is throw on him on first down, come out with 2 tight ends, make sure he's on the field, and then throw at him, which the Patriots did. So you'll see that, and that's a concern, but it's not like last year's team didn't have some concerns at certain spots, and they were able to overcome it. So we just need to see a little bit more.
Moshe, do you feel like you get that 16-0 lead if you're Sirianni and the rest of the coaching staff in bad conditions on the road in New England against Belichick, that they just went a little bit too conservative? Whether that's a good thing or negative or neither, do you just feel like that was the approach from the jump, or that was the adjusted approach after that early lead?
Yeah, I really want to go back through that series of 4 consecutive 3-and-outs, which is sort of mind-boggling, right, for this offense, and see what if there's a common thread. I'm not there yet. I wouldn't say that they were conservative from start to finish. I do think the rain had something to do with that. If you look at their first drive, which was mostly a ground game, it worked pretty well. I mean, they didn't punch it in for the touchdown, right? But they ran the ball well. They were alternating between 11 and 12 personnel. They seemed to have the Patriots struggling to stop certain runs. They were pulling and trapping with Cam Jurgens, right, and their tackles. So I thought they were doing a nice job mixing it up. But, go to the fourth quarter, right? So they got fourth and 3, and they kind of play for the field goal there, which they kick. When normally 4th and 3 for the Eagles on the other side of the field is a place they're not afraid to go for it. And then the very next time they go for it on 4th and 2, when that seemed like overly aggressive when they should have been passive there. In the first situation, I thought they should have been aggressive. So I don't know. It just seemed like a very inconsistent and unorthodox play calling by the offense and by the head coach there.
We're talking with Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com. Let's obviously flip over to the defense and some injury issues. Nakobe Dean missing multiple weeks, it looks like, here with that foot injury. They got Nick Morrow. He said totally confident in him. That's why we still have him on the roster. They signed Rashad Evans, a guy who was a first-round pick. But what is your view of, number 1, how the linebackers played yesterday, and number 2, how they move forward without Dean?
Yeah, I think, just based on the naked eye and still going through some of it until the All-22 comes out, it looks like the linebackers struggled a bit, especially in coverage. I mentioned Zach Cunningham. Have to get a better idea of how Nakobe Dean did, and some of it might be just the function of the scheme that they were playing. within. I'm far more concerned about the injury, not just for the short term, for about 4 weeks, I'm told, sprained foot, but also the long term, because this is why Nakobe Dean fell to the third round. There was a lot of wear and tear on him at Georgia. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He just played against a team that likes to run, likes to put 2 tight ends on the field, and he got hurt. Now, granted, anybody can have a foot sprain, but this is the concern that you had. Say what you want, but do you know how many games T.J. Edwards played last year?
17.
Yeah, 20 if you count the postseason. Played every single game. So it's I would say it's a little bit disconcerting and alarming that the one thing you worried about with Nakobe Dean, as far as staying healthy and durable, already in week 1 became a problem.
Most, you look forward now. Do they continue to look? Do they just hope to get by with Christian Ellis? What's the plan, Stan, at that linebacking position?
It's a great question. I would like to tell you that based on history or what common sense would dictate they would do, but I got to tell you, common sense went out the window when they decided to only keep 3 off-ball linebackers on their 53, right? I mean, they signed Nick Morrow to their practice squad and Ben Van Sumeren, but they literally went into the season saying all we need on our active game day roster is Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham, and Christian Ellis. Like, of those 3, the only person who's actually played like maybe more than 50 snaps of linebacker in the NFL is Zach Cunningham. So I thought that was a really curious decision on their part, at least smart enough to get Nick Morrow back on the practice squad. I imagine that Nick Morrow will either be elevated for the next 3 weeks, or if not, he might be signed if Nakobe Dean goes on a short-term IR. I know Adam Schefter reported Jared Davis, or no, not Jared Davis, Smith. Jared, who's the guy from Tennessee that they're going to sign?
Rashaan Evans.
Rashaan Evans, thank you. Rashaan Evans is going to come in, but, he's got to learn the defense. I don't think he just gets called up and put on the field from day one. So you're basically going to be looking at Nick Morrow, I think, and Zach Cunningham. And I don't think that's quite ideal. You're talking about a player that they released and a player that they signed about a week and a half into camp.
Moshe, what's your assessment on the pressure generated from the Eagles' D-line, the front 7, just defense as a whole yesterday? Jalen Carter, Baby Rhino, a huge story, dominant, week 1, first NFL game, made a big impact, all well and good. Little bit of pressure generated outside of Carter, but not what we were accustomed to seeing if we're comparing it to last year. Is there anything there or nothing there?
No, I was sort of fascinated by it, Ryan. And to be honest, I guess we could have or should have seen it coming, because this was the defensive front that Sean Desai was playing throughout the preseason. And we noted a lot on Inside the Birds, hey, this is not the 5-man, 3 down linemen, 2 overhangs that you saw last year, the penny front from Jonathan Gannon. This is like a little bit more what we've seen in the past, which is either 4 down linemen and 2 linebackers, or 3 down linemen and an overhang, a stand-up rusher as your front 4. But what surprised me about the front 4, though, Ryan, was like I was expecting, like, when it's time to rush the passer, that you were going to see maybe like Josh Sweat and Reddick on the outsides and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox on the inside. It surprised me how much they played Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter inside in pass rushing situations. And those guys did a really good job moving the pocket. I mean, very early on, you saw Carter put a swim move past the right guard that was just so violent that he got right in the face of, it was the play where he threw the interception to Darius Slay, where he just got right on him. And then Jalen Carter was really disruptive for a guy who I wasn't even sure a couple of weeks ago was even going to be part of your number 1 pass rushing line.
Moshe, I want to get your thoughts on Bradbury in the potential that he could be out as well. He's in the concussion protocol. They do play a Thursday night game. If he were to be out, Josh Jobe looks like he would be in. But you also have to keep in mind you're playing against Justin Jefferson in the game on Thursday night, not Kendrick Bourne. So what would it look like if Bradbury can't play?
Well, first of all, let's just take a minute to realize not only were the Eagles extraordinarily talented last year, but man, were they freaking lucky, right? I mean, you have 2 corners in Slay and Bradbury who are a little bit, even last year, starting to get grown in the tooth, right? And both of them wind up playing, I think, every every game. If they had to come out, it might have just been for a snap or two. They never had to have a Josh Jobe come in. And Josh Jobe was a rookie last year. That would have been a disaster probably if one of those two got hurt. And then the same thing at linebacker, right? So here we are a year later, and lightning does not strike twice. You're already down your linebacker, and it looks like you're going to be out James Bradbury because it's very difficult to make it through the concussion protocol in such a short turnaround. So that being said, it looks like Josh Jobe is going to be asked to play the outside, and maybe Nick Morrow at linebacker, and that's already on top of the fact that you're playing some different safeties, and you have a different defense. So it's not easy.
What did you think of Desai yesterday? I saw a lot of criticism of Desai, and I just feel it's I say this last year about Gannon. I just feel these people don't like the style of today's game. It's not John Gannon you don't like. You don't like the way the league is right now. And I saw a lot of people decide not enough pressure, not blitzing enough.
Yep.
I mean, I guess we're going to go through this because he's not going to blitz.
Yeah, well, I hope those same people understand that when you blitz, you have to leave a lot of players in one-on-one situations often, if you blitz often. And while the Eagles have very nice cover corners, they do not have yet excellent cover safeties and cover linebackers. Maybe Nakobe Dean will grow into one, but obviously his growth will be stunted. You do not want Zach Cunningham covering tight ends one-on-one for 30 to 40% of the snaps. It's just a recipe for a disaster. And plus you have great front four rushers. So look at what the Browns did to the Bengals yesterday. Yeah. And that's a Jim Schwartz defense that rushes four. So there's like 4 defensive coordinators in the NFL that the Eagles fans would like Todd Bowles, who blitzes a whole lot, and a couple others. But again, you have to have the personnel to do that. And I don't think the Eagles have the back end personnel. They have some good play. They obviously have good corners who can hold up one-on-one. But it takes more than just 2 if you're going to throw some all-out blitzes. The Patriots blitzed a decent amount yesterday, but they build their defense behind their secondary. They have really good safeties who can cover and corners and nickels who can cover. And the Eagles can. They can blitz occasionally, and by the way, they did. They're just not going to throw a whole bunch of cover zeros at you and get all crazy.
Yeah. All right, Moshe, Thursday night, they get right back at it, so we'll, of course, be all over that for Football at 4. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast with more reaction on that. But Nakobe Dean, he's definitely going to miss the game, possibly James Bradbury, so we'll be all over that the rest of the week as well. Football at 4, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Thanks, Moshe.
All right, guys, have a good one.